Artificial intelligence isn't the future of marketing, it's happening right now. AI is transforming the way brands connect, create, and grow. But what does it really mean for marketers today? That's what we explore in AI, Machine-Made Marketing, a podcast from Advertising Week. In each episode, we dive into the tools, the strategies, and human stories behind AI-powered marketing. Join us as we explore the power of intelligence that's not just artificial, but transformational. Today we're joined by Gavin, CMO of Slack at Salesforce, a platform many of us know as our digital headquarters at work, but one that's rapidly evolving into something much bigger. Because what if Slack isn't just where work happens, but how work happens? In this conversation, Ryan breaks down the shift from tabs and tools to a fully conversational interface where humans, data, applications, and AI agents all come together in one place. He explains how Slack is becoming an agentic operating system where employees don't just do the work, they orchestrate it. We hope you enjoy this episode. Ryan, welcome to the show.
Hey, thanks so much for having me. It's great to be here.
I feel like I have so much to ask you, some of which would probably not even be applicable to this conversation, but it's just a lot of general tips, so I'll save those till afterwards.
Okay.
You're CMO of Slack at Salesforce.
It's more like middle management overhead. Is really
Middle management overhead at Salesforce. But, you touch a product that, a lot of us use on the regular. It doesn't need an introduction for the most part. For a lot of people, Slack has been described as their digital headquarters, particularly at work. But now you're talking about it more as something closer to an agentic operating system, which is all at once kind of exciting and a little daunting because of, my relationship with operating systems isn't quite what I'd love it to be, but perhaps a little different here. What does that mean in practice, and how does bringing humans and AI agents into the same conversational workspace change how work actually gets done or will get done?
Yeah, you can kind of maybe set aside some of the words and descriptions. We all come up with fancy ways to describe products and whatnot. But the easiest way to anchor what distinguishes Slack right now and how we think about it as kind of this work operating system is really look at what some of the most innovative companies out there do and how they use Slack. So if you look at the OpenAIs, the Anthropics, Vercel, Cursor, some of these leading AI companies, when you go inside there, they are moving, at light speed. Obviously, the innovation pace is incredible, and the criticality of having your teams be seamlessly connected and kind of what I describe as working in the open is a critical feature, not a bug. It is how they can move so quickly, and they have to do so with their people, the teams that their people form, and then all the connected systems that surround that enterprise. So obviously your data systems, your HR systems, your workflows, your coding systems, all those kind of things. And the only way you can move at that pace with that level of coordination and grow and scale the way they are is to have one central place where everyone's working together, where all those systems are coming in. Those systems being the humans, those systems increasingly being agents. Your systems of records are being plugged in there. Your workflows are being orchestrated from there. And it's all being directed via conversation. So you've moved from a world of tabs and clicks and learning, maybe a dozen different UIs across the enterprise of here's how Workday works, here's how Jira works, here's how, to saying, cool, I direct work via conversation. I direct it conversation when I'm talking to my teammates. I direct it via conversation when I'm talking to my software. I direct it with conversation when I'm talking to my data and my AI and agents. And that conversational way of working is the platform that every enterprise is going to need. I'm talking about some of the leading AI companies, but this exact same transformation is going to be happening for every single company, whether you're General Motors or eBay, et cetera. You all need to get to these spots where you're moving at kind of this light speed and you've unlocked the opportunity. So when we talk about a work operating system, we're really talking about how do you bring together a platform that connects all your people, your data, your apps, your agents into one system that allows you to work in a conversational interface, which is kind of the new currency now of this AI era. And that's the big shift that we've seen. Slack's been around for 10 years, but it's almost having its kind of coming out moment in this era because it's kind of built for this really unique moment of time.
That kind of implies that this was somewhat the plan all along, which I can see because there was a lot of integrations that you could add along the way. And I know that we used quite a few of those. But what you're saying, as I'm understanding it, is this is kind of the I come in, I sit down in front of my computer, I load up Slack, I'm having conversations, and I go, I want to take a look at the numbers for last, I don't know, March, and bring those up, and we're immediately collaborating on them without really necessarily leaving that space.
Yeah, yeah. Think about it's exactly right. Think about how many large enterprise will have dozens of kind of systems of records and different databases and different places where they're storing their data. Some people have access to those. Many people don't. It's largely not democratized. If you're on the sales team, you have access to the CRM system, and that's where you're going through, and that's your system of record. Some people have access to those. Many don't. What's in the world where, while having the right permissions and kind of governance policies, I can come in and say, those systems are available to me, not because I need to go learn how to use them, but because I can simply ask a question and bring them in. Or better yet, I can ask we have a new feature in Slack called Slackbot, which is this incredible like new UI for work, essentially. And I can go ask Slackbot, hey, can you go find out the latest sales figures? Can you cross-reference that events? What's been happening with customer success and our service team? And also figure out when are the next 3 new opportunities coming up for this count that I'm going to meet with this afternoon. That basically one run-on sentence essentially was probably 6 or 7 hours of work, probably coordinating with 5 or 6 different teams in the past. Now I can do it all through one agent like Slackbot. I can get all that pulled back to me. That like democratization of the data and the accessibility of it, because I don't have to think, I can just do it. I can just act and use language that I'm familiar with to request the things I want. That is totally transformation. And people who are, Slack's kind of, as I was saying, having this moment right now because organizations aren't buying Slack. They're not coming saying, hey, I need a new collaboration tool. Like collaboration is a largely commoditized thing. They're saying, I need to like transform how my organization works in the AI era. And like Slack is representative of this transformation that's happening for employees. And those employees are the most valuable assets right now when you think about what's going to drive growth in this next chapter.
Absolutely. You're talking about making CRM more conversational. I assume that's probably made a bit easier because of the Salesforce component.
Yeah, I wasn't around when Salesforce acquired Slack. I wasn't part of the team. I've been here for about 2 years. So I wasn't in the rooms and the strategy sessions that were contemplating, that acquisition. But if you look back on now, it's kind of genius. If you kind of say, wow, what does Salesforce have? It's like, well, I have this incredible data layer with Data 360 where it provides all this context and metadata. You've got this unbelievably rich applications layer with sales, service, ITSM, marketing, commerce, et cetera. All these applications represent kind of the bodies of work. You now have the systems of agency with, Agentforce building out an agentic platform for organizations that were building, advanced agents that can help with customer service all the way through to employee-facing agents. And what do you need for all that to really be unlocked for employees? Well, you need a system of engagement. You need that thing that employees can use to access all those 3 tiers and to orchestrate it in a way that is simple, intuitive, pleasant, fun, heaven forbid, and can actually be a delightful way to work across this, what we've been talking about, these agentic enterprises that have really brought this full stack to bear for their organizations. So I wasn't in the room when they made that decision, but it certainly seems really smart now.
Oh yeah, absolutely. One of the other big themes that I've seen from you guys in recent times is the idea of personalized AI for every employee. How do these AI partners actually work alongside people within Slack, and how do they help individuals get through complex tasks rather than just simply automate the easy stuff?
Yeah, I'll give you like a set of customer examples. I was speaking with a customer just yesterday, and they were using our new Slackbot capability, which is a Slackbot. Think about it. This is a personal agent for work. It's built for me, and what makes it really unique and powerful is it's deployed in Slack, and because it's deployed in Slack, it knows instantly my business context. I didn't have to teach it anything. I didn't have to train it. Didn't have to like get it up to speed or give it a bunch of documents to learn. It knows all the context of my business because it has the same access to the permissions and governance that I have in Slack. So when you have something like that, this customer was giving me an anecdote how they are going through and using Slackbot. They say, it's incredible, Ryan. They're like, I roll up, I'm on the start of my week. I say, hey, What are the most important things I should be focusing on right now? Give me the 5 areas that my team might be struggling and might need my input. What are the things that are tip top from my priority list that I should be focusing on for making progress against this week? And what are some blind spots that I may not have in terms of feedback that the team may be having for me? And that's like a prompt that they do inside of Slackbot at the start of every week. And Slackbot comes back with this incredibly rich answer that it didn't have to be told who the team members were. It didn't have to be told what the priorities were. It didn't have to be told where the areas to focus should be. It has all that context. It knows that. It can then understand it. So I didn't have to go and train it on any of those things. And it can come back and then tell me, in this case, this customer, wow, hey, here are the 5 areas your team's been looking for some feedback that we noticed you haven't engaged. You should prioritize these 1, 2, and 3. This is on your stated priorities list. I haven't seen any progress been happening on here. Are you sure you're making enough movements on, et cetera? And it goes back with this incredibly rich, detailed plan of action for this leader. And that's a very simple example of how an agent that knows your context and knows your business and kind of works seamlessly in the flow of work can really unlock something that might have taken 5 or 6 meetings, maybe a staff meeting, maybe a whole bunch of Slack messages to kind of track down who needs help, et cetera, or spending a bunch of time working through your various Slack channels to track all that information down. Now that's all available simply right at the fingertips. And you can take that small example and you can multiply it out across increasingly complex workflows where teams are orchestrating work and trying to get, major launches done, et cetera. All that can be brought to bear with technology and agents that know your business and know your context and know you. And I think that's the big differentiator.
One of the things I've always loved about Slack is the ecosystem. I remember I was at a talk that you guys gave in San Francisco, and this was like 10 years ago, something like that. I think we were just learning at the time what Slack was. And it was very communication oriented, but you could kind of see the roadmap ahead for, collaborating within other environments and things like that. But within Slack, that open sort of ecosystem extends to this day. In your mind, how does that make it possible for teams to orchestrate complex workflows without needing those deeper technical skills that, I'll never possess, for example?
Yeah, I mean, I'd say there's 2 things there. It kind of goes back to, we were talking earlier about like Slack being an operating system. One of the aspects of an operating, it's a platform. It's an open platform that everyone from the open AIs and the Anthropics of the world to the Notions and DocuSigns can build on and bring their applications inside of that. And the reason why that's important is all those applications are struggling with the same thing as everyone else doing. They want people to use them. And how do you get them to use them? Well, you bring them into the flow of work and you let people experience them right where they're already working versus asking them to go yet again to another tool. There's just too many tools and too much context switching that already happens in the enterprise. So having a platform that allows these organizations to bring work into and bring it to the individual versus the individual going to work is a very powerful concept. It sounds simple, but it's incredibly powerful. Vercel is a customer and a partner that we love. They do some incredible stuff. I was talking to their COO recently, and she said, Ryan, I have a goal that I don't want any of my sales reps ever to have to leave Slack to update our CRM. So I want to be working with Vercel agents or Slack agents right inside of Slack. I want them to be able to tell what's happening with the account. Here's the notes I had. Here's the call log. Here's the opportunity size. Here's the new phone number for so-and-so. I just want them to be able to put that in agent Slack, and then the system of record updated. Now that's an example of Vercel being able to build a custom application integration or custom agent integration inside of Slack. At the same time, they can also build their platform for coding agents and deploy those right side of Slack. So to your question, every person inside of Slack, whether you're sitting in the marketing department or whether you're sitting in finance or in human resources or on the engineering side, you increasingly as an employee become a generalist. You can tap these agents to go through and do a whole host of stuff that you may never thought you could do walking in the door on Monday. So, you need to be a designer. Cool. There's a designer agent inside of Slack for you inside your organization that you can go through and ask it to help you design something. You need to be an expert in finance. Great. There's a finance agent. And what makes it even more powerful is these agents multiply. Employees are like, I don't know which agent I have available to me. Where do I go for which? You don't have to. With something like Slackbot can now orchestrate all these agents. So Slackbot can speak to all the agents in your organization. Just like a human, it can learn what they're good at. It can learn their skills and capabilities, and it can invoke the right agent on your behalf. So I have one agent that I work with inside of Slack. It's Slackbot. It now talks to the sales agent when I need to, and it gets the right information from that and brings it back to me. I didn't have to go learn that there's a sales agent and what that sales agent was capable of. Slackbot could understand and do that. So that kind of employee agency, which is the real bottleneck right now of unlocking team productivity, of giving employees the capability and the tools in a governed way that's in the flow of work. That's the real bottleneck for multiplying productivity, and that's what we're seeing right now happen with Slack and Slackbot.
And in terms of, let's call it proactivity,
Hmm.
how adept do you see this becoming down the road where, hey, maybe it recognizes that I check in with sales, every 3 weeks, something like that. But I'm not in sales. I'm not in the finance department. God forbid they would never put me there anyway. But let's think I don't know. Maybe I'm over in HR.
Yeah.
And they do notice that I tend to have these tasks that I do, or these things that I look up, or information I request from time to time. Does it then at some point become proactive enough to go, hey, you really haven't checked in with sales lately. Do you want to do that now?
Yeah. So the short answer is absolutely. There's always going to be a line between where, how much do you want your agent being reacting to the kind of prompts that you have and skills and tools that you give it, and versus kind of that next step, which is like, hey, I'm showing up and I'm offering insights and perspectives of things that you may want to be consider or action. We're launching a new Today view inside of Slack, and one of the things it does is it does just that. It starts to identify the areas that you may need to focus, or opportunities or places that you might have missed, and that proactivity is again a result of it's valuable because it understands you and your business context. And when we talk about the enterprise, context exists in largely two buckets: structured context, which is the systems of records, the data, all the systems that are stored in the back end. But the biggest pool and the gold in this AI era is the unstructured context. It's all these conversations that just largely happen and then get lost into the ether. That is the gold of the AI era. And when your unstructured conversations are happening in a system like Slack that's open and accessible to AI, and an agent like Slackbot can understand and research that, it can start to move into that proactive era in a very, very effective way. The last thing you want is an agent that's giving you proactive suggestions that are garbage that you just dismiss while you're doing that. So what is required not to have that happen? Well, it's got to understand that context, just as you said. Like, it's got to observe the patterns and practices of how you work, and even go beyond that. Know how you like to work. Slackbot learns my tone of voice. It learns the things. When I say write an email or write a document for it, it writes it in my tone, because it's learned that, not because I spent time training it. So I think all that level of proactivity is kind of really the next horizon that's going to start to come with these systems that can really understand business context.
For the last question, let's look at the next horizon.
Sure. Oh gosh.
Um,
Is that like next week, or I don't know? The things are moving fast enough. I don't know when the next horizon.
yeah, you'd be far more qualified to answer that question than I would. I have my I have theories that when I think it's a minute, it's actually a month, and when I think it's a year, it's actually last week. So
Yeah, totally.
who knows? But when you're thinking about the future of work, do you see platforms like Slack becoming the place where people direct teams then of AI agents, almost like managers, sort of orchestrating a workforce of digital collaborators?
Yeah, I think there's two major changes that are happening. One, and I kind of touched it earlier. One, people and individuals will become far more generalist than specialists. So, in marketing function, you still get a lot of people who identify themselves as, well, I work on the social side, or I work on the creative side, or I work on, the marketing operations stack, or I'm a specialist in email channel or digital, et cetera. Everyone kind of walks in with their area of expertise and specialty. That will increasingly go away. You are going to have increasingly folks who are generalists. Second, people were going to go from, what I'll call doers of work to orchestrators of work. So increasingly, folks in the marketing function are going to be orchestrating work and orchestrating work across agents. So it should be the expectation, I'll just say on my team, the expectation if someone comes, asking for a headcount, for instance, the first thing I'll be is like, cool, show me this army of agents that you've built out to do X, Y, and Z tasks that you think this headcount's required for. And we really invest a headcount when we need a human to manage that digital labor force. When we need a human who's going to go through and say, hey, yeah, we've got a team of now like 8 agents they're cranking out. We need someone who's managing those agents and orchestrating that work and being accountable for those outputs. But that's a different frame. Like, that is you become an orchestrator of work, not the, hey, I go build this X, Y, and Z piece of content or this campaign or whatever it could be. And that's a big shift. And it's a fundamental one, but it goes to what's really, really important here, which is most people don't talk about it. Employee productivity is probably the single biggest top line driver of growth in this next 5 to 6 years. If you can take your employees and make them 2x, 3x, 4x more, more productive, most organizations spend 40 to 50 to 60% of their capital on what? They spend it on their people. So if we are getting a multiple of value from those people, that is like a 200% top line revenue growth for every organization. And I haven't met anyone in the C-suite that would ignore a top line revenue growth of 200% just by making their people more productive. And that's the kind of the transformation we're talking about.
And all of it, I would think, is easier for them. I think for each of those people, their jobs for the most part have, they're evolving for sure. They're becoming more general, as you said, but it feels like, you're not doing as much of the tedium that you used to be.
Yeah, we describe it as like the work of work. There's so much work of work still. Like it's amazing when you kind of analyze your day of like how much stuff you're doing it's required, but it's not adding value to the company, it's not adding value as an employee or customers, et cetera. It's the work of work. And that is really going away. And I'll say I've been guilty of this. I've been talking about machine learning and things like this for many years. And it's always been a constant reframe that everyone said. It was like, well, machine learning is not going to take away jobs, but what it's going to do is, free up, the things that are uniquely human, allow us to be more creative, allow us to, apply ourselves in the higher value things that will deliver returns for the business from our customers. I've said that many times in the past. I think this is the first time I'm like, oh, that's real. Just to be super transparent, because it is really different. You see people coming into work, they're like, I still have a million things to go do, but the anxiety isn't there. There's something new to go figure out, but I'm excited to go figure it out because I've got these tools that I can apply that are going to help me along the way, and I can be more creative, or I can fill gaps in my personal competency set that I otherwise don't have. And you just see kind of an energy of it. And the teams that have really embraced it are producing at a level that's astounding right now. It's quite astounding. If you can go the smaller companies, you can really see it because it's just there's no barriers. And I'm really proud to say here at Slack and Salesforce, we're operating like we're a startup, and we have that same mentality.
Ryan, this was very enjoyable. I love any conversation about AI that is not one of the scarier ones, but more the very positive ones in real world takeaways that I can understand. I appreciate that. If one wanted to find out more about yourself, I think everybody knows where to find Slack and Salesforce. But if one wanted to find out more about you, where would they go?
Yeah, just pop up to LinkedIn, shoot me a note, and yeah, happy to engage in conversations.
Excellent. Thanks so much for taking the time to be on the show today. This was great.
I really appreciate it. Have a great day.